Dave Yovanno, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Thanks for having me, John.
It's a pleasure to be with you. You're joining us from Santa Barbara. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about thriving in the partnership economy. This is really a topic taken from your recent book. You're going to tell us all about that here in a minute. But ultimately, we live in a world where we need partnerships. We can't do everything alone. I'm not sure we ever could do everything alone, but certainly in the modern age, that's just not going to work out for most people. So I'm excited to explore this together. As we get started, I wanted to share David's bio with everybody. Dave Yovanno is responsible for Marin's overall strategic direction and execution. Prior to joining Marin in May of 2014, he first joined Conversant Inc., formerly ValueClick Inc., in 2000 and held a number of leadership positions for U.S. media, including Executive Vice President of Sales and Marketing, General Manager, and Chief Operating Officer until 2008. Dave left Conversant in 2008 to be CEO of, how do you say that one? Gigya?
Gigya.
Gigya. Dave left Conversant in 2008 to be CEO of Gigya, a high-growth social technology SaaS company based in Silicon Valley, and then rejoined Conversant in 2011. Most recently, Dave served as President Technology Solutions for Conversant from 2011 to 2014 and was responsible for the company's technology solutions globally, media solutions internationally, the company's DSP solution, driving cross-solution synergies, and assisting with the company's corporate development program. What a fantastic background and career. A pleasure to be with you. Anything else you would like to share with listeners by way of your background or personal context before we dive on in?
No, I just say the sum of it is I've been in the marketing technology space for over 20 years. Had the pleasure to work with a number of the companies that you met with. I got to enjoy the .com rise and fall back in the early 2000s timeframe. Conversant was a public company for a long time, got acquired by Alliance Data Systems. Gigya ultimately got acquired by SAP. So I've seen a lot of ups and downs, certainly, and a lot of trends in the space, which we'll get into here in the program, just kind of like the journey of evolution of businesses, especially in the marketing space. So excited to chat about it here today.
Yeah, very good. And why don't we start there and talk a little bit more just about partnerships generally? It's the premise of your book named The Partnership Economy. Why are partnerships so important in this day and age? And then we can talk a little bit more specifically about how your book came to be.
Yeah, so lots to unpack with that question. I would just say that partnerships have been around forever. I think what's changed is, when I say partnerships, what I talk about is, people working together, businesses working with each other to kind of help each other out, like referring business. That's generally what we're talking about in the world of partnerships. And it's always been part of business. It's just never been at scale. It's never been required to be at scale, I think, in the past. And there has been some evolution that has gotten the channel into a position where it is at scale and it's driving meaningful growth. And just one anecdote on that, our largest customers, so at impact.com, just to give you a point of context, we're a platform. I think of it as a business development toolkit. We're helping businesses and partners, find each other. So there's a discovery and marketplace capability. We handle the contracts between them. We're the source of truth on tracking, like who's doing the referral, and we'll handle payment processing, and then just overall program management. So we're a SaaS, a technology platform in this ecosystem, and there are many actors in this ecosystem. But I think when you think of how companies have traditionally acquired revenue or acquired customers, they've relied on traditional channels, typically advertising or all forms of marketing. And if you were to hang with me for a minute and just go back 100 years and how advertising and marketing started really as a channel in terms of mass media, you had radio and TV start roughly in the same year. And what was the consumer experience back then? It was a couple channels. You had a heavily controlled message from an advertiser. And in fact, the commercial kind of was part of the core content. If you remember it back then, it was, we're all sitting around the same stations, we're all listening to the same jingles, all running out, buying the products that we were told to go buy. And so, over, the course of the last 100 years, it's been like that, where, the advertisers were kind of disrupting, the consumer behavior, if you will, with their message, and heavily influencing what people purchase. And then what's changed and what's evolved, if you go back 30 years ago, the internet started, and then roughly 10 years ago, you've had the rise of these social publishing platforms. We're all familiar with YouTube by now. Now you've got Instagram, you've got TikTok, and what's happened is you've got this democratization of commerce content. When we talk about commerce content, this is content that is published specifically about products. And if you think back, when the internet first started, people are just searching for things, their hobbies, finding different information. And, I would say at this stage that we're at right now, there is critical mass of information about products out there that just wasn't at scale, call it 3-4 years ago even. And it's become the primary path and journey of the modern buyer. That it used to be that you would hear that commercial, or you talk to a salesperson if it's a B2B sort of business, and do a little bit of due diligence, but you were making a unilateral decision to buy something based on what you were told. Now the primary consumer journey is, I think Forrester, Jay McManey just moved to a new company called Canalys, I think, cites research there's 22 points of research that a consumer is doing before they make a purchase. I'm not talking about an impulse purchase like a t-shirt or something like that, tennis racket, anything like that. People are doing 22 points of research. They're looking at YouTube videos, they're reading reviews, they're checking blog posts, they're finding anything that they can get, they're comparing things. And so advertising is kind of taking a back seat to this. Like, advertising might create awareness for something. Now it all works together. There's a surround sound effect of how the world of marketing works. So it all works together. But I think the biggest change is that advertising, like think of a TV commercial or magazine ad or anything, has kind of taken a back seat to this world of partnerships and the commerce content that's being published out there. And we'll unpack that a little bit more in a minute, because I know I'm responding with a lot here. Because what's happening is when somebody gets into decision mode, so that you think of ADA in the marketing funnel, you've got awareness, interest, desire, decision, and action. The decision-making step in that model is being done with the research that consumers are doing, right? And what we're advocating in this partnership economy, but what the book is about, is trying to inspire brands to rely less on trying to interrupt and disrupt and have this direct message where you're controlling everything and thinking people are going to buy just based on what you're telling them, and invest more time and effort in being part of the information that's being published about products, right? Form a partnership with that influencer, with that creator, with that business, with that major publisher, Better Homes and Garden, what have you. There's teams of editors now that will engage with businesses, understand your products, write about them, and then they're essentially guiding or referring their audience or their customers to do business with people like you, and be part of that information. That's the opportunity here in business.
Yeah, great. And you identified several different types of partnerships that I think many listeners would recognize, and you're approaching this primarily from the lens of marketing partnerships and sales partnerships and sales funnels and those sorts of things, which is really, really important. I'll just zoom out for just a moment before we zoom back in and just acknowledge how important it is for us, regardless of the functional area of the business, that we need to form and cultivate partnerships. If we want to get stuff done, with people, then we need partnerships, and partnerships are built upon trust over time. And you can't sidestep that. You can't take a shortcut to that. You just have to build trust over time and develop relationships where people know that they can count on you.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, because it's such an important point. That is really at the center of this partnership economy, what the book is about. If you look at what advertisers have done over the last 100 years that I talk about, what have they done? They've largely not established trust and gone absolutely the other way. Like, they paint this perfect world, this photoshopped image of something that's not reality, right? One small example, I remember being a young kid standing in line at McDonald's with my grandfather, and you see on the menu this beautiful Big Mac, right? It's like perfect photo, whatnot. and then you get the sandwich, it looks like it's been run over by a car. It's just not true. And I think as a society, we've almost like trained ourselves to not believe what we see in an ad, right? This perfect model, this perfect thing, and then you order this product based on the ad, and it's not what was advertised. And I think just generally as a society, we've accepted that. And I talked about the internet starting and then the social publishing platform starting. Just one specific example of that really was YouTube. And this is when I talk about the democratization of information, like the consumer has, taken control because of the lack of trust or just flat out distrust and lying that advertisers have been doing all these years. So YouTube starts, and what happened? Like people, for whatever reason, were compelled to open up products and talk about them just because they're passionate about them. It wasn't because they were getting paid to do it. Like they felt like somebody needs to stand up and give the straight scoop, shoot straight in terms of, does this thing work or not? Is it good or not? Let me give you my opinion on it. And it's because they love it and they just want to help other people. That's kind of how it started. And then as things started to scale, they actually started to monetize the content that they were creating. And this is where platforms like impact.com come in, as they grabbed affiliate links and they understood that, hey, I'm actually providing value to consumers. Like they're making purchase decisions based on information that I'm providing. Why not earn a commission on some of those sales? And when we talk about truth, like what made that rise so quickly is because most creators put the customer at the center of the show. They're the star of the show, as I call it, meaning it wasn't about being that cheesy salesperson. They were the ones that were kind of writing the rules and think about like the checks and balances that are built into that sort of platform, right? You've got comments, you've got the subscribe button, right? The last thing that creator wants to do is lose a subscriber or have negative comments, be called out. So it's almost like this beautiful design that for the first time, this is one of the things that I'm really excited about. It's like the customer is the focus and like what's best for the customer. And think about like, if a creator is going to call somebody out for having a poor quality product, it just raises the bar for all businesses to create better products. And who wins at the end of the day? Like the consumer gets the straight scoop on what's real and what's not. And there's an incentive here for businesses to provide a better service or create a better product. And I love it. And then so what happened was creators proved that you can actually produce this content and get paid for it and remain authentic, remain truthful to the audience and be compensated for it, right? It used to be Consumer Reports, right? We all know those expensive magazines from years and years ago. It wasn't at scale, wasn't at critical mass. That's kind of what's happened with these creators. Like they're doing Consumer Report type content, but at scale. Everybody's doing it. So the major editors recognized what was happening here. Think of like Better Homes and Garden, and Condé Nast has a number of publications, Vogue, let's say, where they would just typically write about trends. And there was always like that divide between the content team, the editors that decided what news was fit to print, and then like the editorial, the advertising group, like how they monetize their content. And you always think of like advertising being like a full page between content that was just about content, I guess. It wasn't about products. And now what those editors have done is they've recognized what these creators are doing. They can actually form a partnership with the business, create content about products, and inside that information provide links or other ways to refer business over and be compensated for it, and do it in a way to still remain authentic and truthful with their audience. It's been a complete paradigm shift. And this has all happened, I'd say, in the last 5 to 7 years, this kind of evolution, if you will, in commerce content and how things are published. Now we're, if you look, I was watching like I can't remember the Today Show, one of the major news channels, the morning shows. You got these news anchors now in the morning reviewing products, and there's like this QR code on the bottom of the screen, because of their personal experience with the product, and they're referring business over. So I don't think most people recognize this shift that's happened essentially with the information that's being sourced about products.
Yeah, super interesting. And I really like the focus on the authenticity that you're describing. Again, regardless of what type of partnership we're talking about, to zoom out for just a minute, it's built partnerships, sustainable partnerships are built upon trust. And
Mhm.
trust is built upon repeated vulnerable interactions with people, right? And so
Mhm.
whether I'm talking about a partnership in terms of like a relationship, like a romantic partner, or I'm talking about like a workplace, a team who are partners to do something, or I'm talking about internal functional areas of a business partnering with each other to get
Mhm.
things done and to accomplish what the organization needs, or if we're talking about partnerships to get stuff out to consumers, regardless of the type of partnership we're talking about, we need that trust to be built. And that is only built as people are vulnerable and as they're authentic. And so
Mhm.
when I think about social media marketing and influencers, for example, now I'm not an expert in this space at all, but I certainly have talked to enough people and I know what I like. So at least anecdotally, I can look at that, and like the highly polished types of content that I see on social media, I don't trust it because
Right.
it's manufactured.
Mhm.
But when
Mhm.
someone just genuinely, authentically is sharing their opinion, uh,
Mhm.
in a less polished, a less produced kind of a way, it just
Mhm.
resonates more,
Yeah.
and it has a
Yeah,
bigger
today's
impact.
consumer has a very high BS filter, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's just with all the sharing and content, these platforms are enabling collaboration. And it's, society is just, has just raised the bar for the truth on things. And, like I said, I think that is the challenge and the opportunity in the partnership economy is for businesses to kind of recognize that, form partnerships with, people who have this trusted relationship with an audience or with a customer, and draw an alliance with them, like be a partner with them, right? And it's not all just about the reviews and the content that's being published. It's also like product experiences. Like what we're seeing on the impact.com platform are businesses that are trying to bring more value to shared customers. Like we have a great partnership between HubSpot and Canva. I don't know if you're familiar with those services. HubSpot is an inbound marketing automation platform. Canva allows mostly businesses to do design things like designing banners and newsletters and emails and things like that. So while you're using this marketing automation tool, instead of leaving that tool and then going into Canva to do your design work, they have a partnership where they're actually integrated with each other. So inside of the HubSpot experience, you can, if you're not already a customer, you can sign up for Canva. But more importantly, your workflow is embedded into that software piece. Maybe a consumer example, Airbnb has great partnerships with travel partners like Delta or Qantas. Like if you go to qantas.com and you're booking a flight to Australia, top of full, there's an option to also book a stay at an Airbnb, as part of the same experience. So instead of having to leave Qantas and go over to Airbnb and do that, you're kind of doing that in a very integrated fashion. So just bringing just a better experience for companies that are just like no-brainer partnerships. Another good one is Ticketmaster and Spotify, Ticketmaster and Pandora. Like if you're listening to an artist on any of these music apps, you can tap through some content, see where they're in concert, if they're in concert near you, and seamlessly purchase a ticket. Like doesn't that just make sense that you're going to enhance the experience of that Spotify listener to, show when that artist is in concert? So it's not just about the commerce content piece. I'm just kind of broadening, the use cases here so that your audience can kind of understand that this is the primary way. Like, I think people are making buying decisions, but they're also staying with certain products and services based on, the improved experience. And again, back to my earlier point, who wins at the end of the day in this new economy? It's the consumer, which is, I think, exciting for all of us.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so let's, as we wrap up today, give us some of your top tips, those things that we can start doing right now. Obviously there's listeners from all different walks of life and different types of organizations and businesses. We have entrepreneurs, we have corporate people, we have all sorts of people who listen. What can we do though, generally, as we want to just get this process started for brands that want to start partnership programs?
I'd say the simplest and easiest thing is talk to your customers. Like if you're a business, I mean, this opportunity is really for businesses that are trying to grow their revenue. We're all challenged with revenue acquisition, customer acquisition. The number one thing is talk to your customers. You can call them, you can sit down with them, you can survey them, but ask where they are sourcing information prior to making a purchase, like yours. What are other businesses that they enjoy alongside yours? And then go reach out to those sources of information or those businesses and explore forming a partnership. I think it's that simple. And it does take a little bit of business development work, if you will. It's not like the coin-operated world of advertising where you're putting $1 in, you're getting a click back, from Google. But what I can promise you is that little bit of effort has residual value, right? Meaning, those partnerships are put in place, and there are videos on YouTube of different reviews that sit out there for 5 years. Once it's created, that continues to drive residual sales for many clients, residual income for those creators. That's the easiest thing. And then also just recognize what's happening with your cost to acquire customers. This is the other thing that's been accelerating this growth and importance of partnerships as a revenue acquisition channel, is just how expensive it's getting through other traditional channels. It's becoming less efficient for a number of different reasons. I think the modern consumer is not as responsive to traditional advertising for all the things that I mentioned, because of all the examples and reasoning I gave earlier. But it's also becoming very expensive. So if your audience isn't aware, we've lost what's called IDFA. That's the identifier for advertisers within the iOS, Apple's tracking capability. And then Google's announced doing away with their cookie as well as retargeting. All that means is there's been a lot of disruption in big tech. And you effectively can't target, track, and measure an ad on the internet anymore, unless it's inside the walled gardens, meaning the Facebook platforms, Google, Amazon, et cetera. So you got more demand going into fewer supply sources, and it's caused a huge 100+% increase in ad rates across the board. And so those two things working in tandem, consumers are less responsive to ads, and then ad rates have skyrocketed. You're almost forced, to look for alternatives if you want to remain competitive with regards to revenue acquisition. And it just so happens that at the same time, this opportunity within partnerships is really scaling. I mean, our most mature customers are seeing partnerships contribute 30% of their total revenue mix is coming from their partnerships, but as a channel, it's growing more than 50%. So it's become a real needle mover for business. Whereas, we talk about partnerships have been around for forever. They've just never been a really important channel because no one kind of understood. Platforms like impact.com didn't exist, where things are being aggregated and actually managed in a meaningful way. And so now it's become a real critical business driver.
Yeah. Thank you so much, David. This has just been a fascinating conversation. I've learned a lot. There's a lot for me to think about. I hope it's been helpful for my listeners as well. Before we wrap up for today, I just wanted to give you a chance to share with listeners how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, your team, and then give us the final word on the topic for today.
Yeah, if you'd like to check out the book, we've got a dedicated website. It's called thepartnershipbook.com, or you can just simply go to impact.com and find out more about it.
Thank you, David. I hope everyone will reach out, get connected, check out the book. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have